We are live.
Thank you, Maurice. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, April 26th version of the regular meeting of Kimberley City Council, held here on the place called Kukumanum, the homelands of the Ktunaxa peoples. Maurice, do we have any late items?
There's no late items for the April 22nd meeting. I think you said April 26th. So just so that we're clear, we're on April 22nd.
I may have mumbled 22nd. My apologies for that. All right, hearing none, could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? The motion is carried. Next up, we have the adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting held on April the 8th. I have a mover, Councillor Roberts, thank you. And Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the minutes of the special meeting of council held on April the 10th. Mover, please. Councillor Roberts, thank you. Councillor McBain seconds. Any opposed? That motion is carried. And finally, the minutes of the special meeting of council held on April the 15th. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Excellent. Thank you, Council. Formalities out of the way. The first item on the agenda tonight is the fourth quarter RCMP report. Sergeant Woodcox, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for allowing me to come in tonight and present the fourth quarter. And this will encompass the months of January to March 2024. As you know, the three priorities we've had during this fiscal year have been traffic enforcement, youth, and in property crime and targeting social and chronic offenders. The next time I'm in, we'll have a new set of priorities that are we have meetings with our partners, the city and the regional district, and we will come up with new initiatives for next quarter. But for these 3 months, it's going to be the same three priorities. The calls for service this quarter were identical almost to the quarter before. And during this quarter, there were 10 reports to Crown Council, meaning 10 reports for criminal charges were forwarded during this quarter. I want to touch on a couple areas because sometimes when I do this report, I want to kind of give some instance of what we deal with so you know what your local police are dealing with out there. We could talk about numbers all the time, but it's good to have some specific incidents. So I just want to touch on a few of those if I could. When it comes to property crime, unfortunately, the second time this year that the Ghost Riders Motorsports was broken into. So that date, 5 motorcycles were stolen. Luckily, they were recovered the next day in Jaffrey, and I think that's because some of the owners of the businesses have put some stuff on social media and some photos, and due to that, I think we did recover, or led, I should say, to the recovery of those vehicles. That investigation is still ongoing, so we have recovered some evidence at the scene from that, so that investigation is still proceeding. Another incident that should be mentioned is there was a theft of a truck in Townside area. That truck was later spotted in the Columbia Valley, and a short pursuit was initiated with that vehicle, and 3 individuals were arrested, and there was firearms located in that vehicle. At the same time that that was going on, we had a report of a vehicle on fire in the Wausau area down at Forest Service Road. That vehicle was later discovered to be stolen out of Logan Lake. We believe these are all associated with the same individuals, but it goes to show that a lot of these individuals that aren't from the Kimberley area are simply coming here to commit crime. And we see that from time to time where we see offenders there have a lot of pressure on them in other jurisdictions that are coming here to do crime or coming here to do crime while they're on their way to another jurisdiction, whether that's Alberta, whether that's Calgary. But that stuff does happen here, and it doesn't happen here a lot. But those instances I refer to, we believe it's all the same individuals involved in it. So another area I don't talk about a lot, but is a concern, is impaired driving. We do see obviously spikes in that from time to time, but that is an issue that has never gone away, continues to be an issue. There was two incidents during this quarter. One where there was an accident on Jerry Sorensen Way where an impaired individual crashed into a vehicle with a family. Luckily, there weren't serious injuries from that, but that person was detained at the scene and now is facing criminal charges for impaired driving. There was another incident, again, out in the Wausau area where BC Ambulance had called in the report of a suspected impaired driver. When the officer located the vehicle didn't stop right away. Eventually it did. That individual again was impaired and in possession of a loaded firearm in a truck, and he's been charged with numerous criminal offenses too. So I just want to remind the public, if you do see someone and you believe they're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, please call. That puts everyone's life at jeopardy. And like I said, that's one issue that seems to be a recurring thing that I don't speak about a lot, but it's definitely concerning to a lot of people. And come the summer months, we have kids and families walking all over town. We want to make sure that those people that are impaired are stopped by the police and charged accordingly. So,
Steve,
yeah.
so these couple of examples that you've given, would they be part of the 10 reports that were forwarded? Would they be included in those 10?
Yes.
They would be. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And one other question, and that is of the reports, in this case, for this period, there were 10. When the reports are forwarded to Crown Counsel for charge approval, how many are actually charged typically?
Yeah.
Like what?
I don't know if I have I could sit here and say 75%, 60%. I don't have a number. I could definitely get that information and look at a yearly thing, but
just looking for approximate.
I'd say majority of them charges are late. So what that majority number is, whether that's a 75%, 80%, but I think majority of items that are sent to Crown, charges are late.
Awesome. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
And I just want to give a shout out to the search and rescue. I know I've talked a few times before about the help from the Kimberley Search and Rescue, but I've worked with search and rescue for 24 years, and the people we have here at the Kimberley Search and Rescue are some of the most dedicated people I know. They always answer the phone. They're very eager to help out. They mobilize themselves in a moment's notice. And I've said before, without them in some of these situations, I don't know what we do. So I just want to give a shout out to them. We did use them for 6 times during the quarter, so from January to March. Several of those incidents were for injured skiers, nothing serious, but again, without their assistance, we'd be at a very difficult area to try to recover some of these people. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them because I probably, again, don't do it frequently enough, but I just wanted to let everyone know in the community that they're a great bunch of people and always willing to help. So, and I'm open to any questions anyone has.
All right, Council. Questions or comments? Pretty thorough, as usual, Steve. I think I answered what I had. Kevin, go ahead.
It was sort of brought to my attention that we actually don't have protection on the city from the hours of like 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock. Is that actually true, or?
Well, what I can tell you is we don't have 24-hour policing. So there's a few hours overnight that we have people that are on call just because we don't have enough members to staff it 24 hours a day. So I can tell you there's just several hours in the morning that there is no police working, but they're on call. So if something happens, they're called out and they're there within minutes from their home. But we do not have 24-hour policing simply because we don't have enough members to cover off all that.
Are we looking for more members then to come here so we can have 24?
Well, even if we're at our full complement, it's very difficult to have enough people to cover all those hours. So, I mean, at the establishment we're at now, we're just not able to staff it for 24 hours a day. But for the majority of the night and the day, we do have members, but there are several hours where members are on call.
How often do those on calls actually get calls?
I'd say several times a month, not a lot. I mean, you may see some of the summer months where it's 10, 12 times. You might see some of the winter months, it's 1 or 2. So it's not, and what we do is we try to look at the times that these crimes are being committed. And the calls are not even crimes being committed, I should say, when the calls for service are coming in. And we try to balance that as to when is the time or the least probability we're going to get calls, and that's the hours we put people on call. But it does happen, of course.
So it varies. It's not the same hours all the time.
It is the same hours all the time, but that's from looking at the numbers and seeing when the calls for service are coming in. And then we put the people on call during those hours.
Awesome. Further? All right, awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thank you for your time.
No tough questions tonight.
Oh, that's okay. I'm open to taking tough questions.
Thank you for the report. All right, next up is the 2024-2028 5-year financial plan bylaw for consideration of first 3 readings. And the motion on the floor is exactly that the bylaw be read a first, second, and third time. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Karen seconds. Discussion. Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to go through everything we've gone over the last 5 months on this. If council has any questions, I'll certainly answer them. All of the information from the previous budget meetings, I think we've had, it's been 5 months anyways, we've been having meetings, is posted on Engage Kimberly. All of the budget meetings were broadcast on YouTube, so there's links to the YouTube videos, as well as the information presented at those meetings. A couple of things I will mention. Since the last meeting on March 4th, managers have come up with a few budget requests that weren't included in the previous budget meeting. New information has become available. So the first one of those is Marysville Industrial Park. Council will recall at the March 25th, 2024 meeting, council awarded the Marysville Industrial Park Phase 1 improvement project to the contractor who submitted the lowest bid. Along with that, there was a resolution passed related to the award. In your provided direction to carry forward unspent funding from 2023, so it was $87,584, and also reallocated about $59,000 from the sewer component of the project to the roads component. Another project that was that's been added since that March 4th meeting. There was a budget of $100,000 from city reserves that had been approved for 2026 to undertake a fire hydrant flow and volume assessment. A somewhat related project titled the Mark Creek Water System Supply Study had been approved with a budget of $150,000 in 2024. That project was 100% grant dependent, and since the March 4th meeting, we found that we've been notified that grant was denied. So given the importance of the data that will be provided through the completion of both of those initiatives, what management is asking is that the $100,000 project from 2026 be brought forward to 2024 so that work can commence this year. And the operations and fire departments have indicated that with some scope adjustments, that budget will be sufficient to achieve the required objectives of both those projects. And then the last one, due to a recent resignation of a member of council, a by-election is required. And whether it's a full election with mayor and all 6 councillors or just one member of council, we have to go through the full process, and therefore the budget is the same. So I'm asking the council approve, or that the bylaw before council includes a $25,000 budget to undertake a by-election, with the funding source being the unallocated general operating surplus. Happy to answer any other questions that council might have.
All right, thanks, Jim. Council, questions or comments? None? I guess I have a comment, and this is primarily for public consumption as opposed to council, but it's a reminder that the proposed tax increase, which we'll get to here in a couple of minutes, just a little bit over 5%, 5.33%, I guess, is only to maintain what we have. It's not related to the projects. The projects are financed from reserves and or the general reserve fund. And that increase is to maintain the exact service levels that we have now, the operating expenditures such as staff salaries and things like that, reserve contributions that we need to put into reserves to keep them healthy, and debt repayment. That's where the 5.33% goes. The incremental spending that we're talking about here tonight, these numbers will come from reserves, not from, increases in the tax rate. And I think it's fairly important to understand that just by cutting projects out, you don't reduce the amount of increase in the variable tax rate. Okay, hearing no more questions, I will call the question on first, second, and third reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the City of Kimberley Parcel Tax Imposition Bylaw for consideration of first three readings. And the motion on the floor is exactly that this bylaw be read a first, second, and third time. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Roberts, seconds. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this bylaw is in relation to the Kimberley Parcel Tax Imposition Bylaw. And the funds raised through the collection of the parcel tax go towards funding the operating deficit associated with the Aquatic Center. The operating deficit is expenditures over revenue, and it also includes the annual construction loan payment on the debt that was borrowed in 2005 when the facility was built. So the operating deficit for the pool, including that debt payment in 2024, was $1,060,000. So that's essentially what we lose on that facility every year. All of that money goes towards funding the deficit and the debt payments. And there was a slight adjustment this year as well. If any given year, because the Aquatic Center parcel tax is based on budget figures, if the budget in any given year is less, we end up collecting more tax than we need. That money goes into a reserve, gets pulled out the next year, which results in the Aquatic Center parcel tax being reduced. So the parcel tax in 2024 is $213.73, and that is levied on every piece of property in town, regardless of the property classification. So residential, commercial, industrial. And yeah, so this is an exercise that we go through every year. The debt that I referred to earlier, that loan payment was taken out for a period of 20 years. So the first payment was in 2026. The final payment will be in 2025. So the Aquatic Center parcel tax will be reduced in 2026 by the amount that's required to make the debt payment, which is about $190,000 a year, which equates to about $40 that the parcel tax will be able to be reduced by commencing in 2026. So through the adoption of this bylaw, that'll set the parcel tax for this year.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Council, questions or comments? So I just have one summary comment, again, mostly for public consumption. Council will recall a couple of years ago, well, several now, I guess, we simplified the funding of the Aquatic Center to make it much more transparent on what that facility cost us. And so the two numbers that people need to remember are revenues of approximately $350,000 a year, and the operating expenditures are approximately $1.2 million a year. So as Jim had indicated a moment ago, that's where the so-called loss, it's actually a subsidy that we're putting into the facility. And of all municipal facilities, I think this is the case for larger municipalities as well, the Aquatic Center tends to be one of the ones at the top of the heap, simply because of the amount of maintenance that's required. You can imagine a building filled with water. It's concrete and steel and things that do not react well to water. So the maintenance on these things is significant. Having said that, these are one of the facilities that in a growing, vibrant community with lots of young families, aquatic centers, and lots of seniors, aquatic centers are almost a prerequisite for a lot of people that want to live in a community. So although it is costly, it is one of those facilities that we definitely need to support. Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, next up, we have the City of Kimberley tax rates bylaw for consideration of first three readings. The motion on the floor is that that bylaw be read a first, second, and third time. Mover, please. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Karen seconds. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So by legislation every year, municipalities are obligated to set tax rates not only for municipal purposes, but also for regional district and regional hospital purposes. So that's what this bylaw does. In addition to setting the rates, it also establishes the payment due date for taxes. The staff report notes July 3rd, but it's actually July 2nd, which is indicated in the bylaw. So just with regards to municipal taxes, Kimberley is a little bit unique. We collect not only variable taxes, which are calculated based on the tax rate that's set by this bylaw, we also collect a flat tax rate. So a somewhat simplified explanation of the variable tax rate is that through the budget process, council establishes the revenues and expenditures that we need to operate the municipality for the year. We take that number, the revenue that we need to operate the city, net revenue, we divide that by the assessed values of all the properties in town, which is provided by BC Assessment. We have no control over those numbers, and the tax rates are essentially pushed out from that. And we apply that tax rate to the assessed values of the individual properties, which is what shows up on your tax notices. The flat tax is established by a separate bylaw entirely. It really has nothing to do with this bylaw, but of course it shows up on your tax bill. Council provided direction earlier this year that the flat tax on improved residential properties remain at $306, which is where it's been for the last couple of years. So improved being a lot with a home on it. And vacant lots, same thing. We're leaving that at $386, which is where that's been for the last few years as well. So to collect sufficient revenue to fund the combined budgets for the general fund net operating expenditures, reserve contribution, debt payments this year, council approved an increase to the combined 2023 municipal variable rate flat rate taxes of 5.33%. That rate will apply to across all property classes, so residential, utility, light industrial, business, and recreation. So it's interesting to note that the property taxes that we collect fund only about 65% of the general fund operating expenditures. And any of the money that's collected through property taxes stays within the general fund. So none of it goes towards funding the water and sewer funds. They're self-funded. So water and sewer expenditures are funded through the collection of water and sewer fees and grants specifically for those funds. So based on the 5.33% increase, the municipal property tax revenue budgeted to be collected in 2024, the amount, if you apply that tax rate, is $11,740,762, and we'll collect another $1,369,000 in change in flat tax for a total of $13.1 million this year. The resulting municipal tax levy on the average single-family dwelling in 2024, which is assessed at $540,000. Last year, the average assessed value was $506,000, so it continues to ramp up. Is $2,564 for the variable tax portion of that. I've got a few notes here on the impact of new development as well. So that's a factor that really comes into consideration when we're setting the tax rates on an annual basis. So in 2024, the city realized $41.5 million in non-market change, which is new assessment primarily related to new residential construction. So on that new assessment, we'll collect property tax of just over $180,000. So without the new assessment resulting from that non-market change, rather than the tax increase being 5.33%, it would have to be 1.47% higher. So it would have to be 6.8% to collect the same amount of revenue to fund general operations. As noted earlier in the budget process, we also increased the building permit revenue budget by $100,000 this year, just due to the strong construction market. So without that additional $100,000, the tax rate would have had to increase by another 0.82%. So we would have been at 7.62% without that additional revenue, just as a matter of interest. So that would have resulted in the average single family home paying about $69 more in tax to collect the same amount of revenue. So moving on to the regional district of East Kootenay. So what they do every year is they send a letter advising us what the requisition is for them. They tell us how much the city needs to collect for the regional district and regional hospital. We then calculate the tax rates for that the same way. We apply it to the assessed values for the properties. We collect that money and then we give it to the regional district. So we don't keep any of that money for our own use. I think that's important to note as well, because when people get their tax notices, they look at it, they're writing a check to the city and they make the assumption that that money goes to the city and we keep it. But in reality, we only keep about 70% of the taxes that we collect, as I'll note a little later on here. So in 2024, the regional district has asked that we collect $1.1 million for them, which is an increase of about 6.2% over what we collected for them last year. As noted in the staff report, the services that the RDEK provides for that requisition are noted there. So central solid waste is by far the biggest. General admin is the next. Emergency 911, library, central emergency planning function, regional parks, invasive plant management, and then the boat launch on Lake Koocanusa there. The East Kootenay Regional Hospital District, the RDEK also provides a requisition to collect for them. So in 2024, we're going to collect $890,696 for the hospital, which represents an increase of 26.1% over last year's requisition. And again, just a matter of interest here, since 2019, that hospital requisition has jumped by just about 375%. RDEK staff have explained that the increases over the last number of years are primarily related to annual contributions to reserves to fund future infrastructure investment. The rest of the report here, the city also collects taxes for other agencies, including BC Assessment, Municipal Finance Authority, and the province for school tax. We don't set tax rates for those organizations. They provide us with tax rates and we apply them to the assessed values. So I've got a chart at the bottom there that just indicates how much tax is collected for each of the various organizations. So the total of all those for 2024 is $4,365. And of that, the city retains the municipal variable tax, the flat tax, and the pool parcel tax that we collect. So we retain $3,084 of that $4,365, or about 70.6%. Yeah, so again, by adopting this bylaw, council would be establishing the tax rates for municipal, regional district, and regional hospital purposes.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I thank you, Jim, for laying this out, and I really like you highlighting the what could have beens. I really just want to thank you and staff all the way down the line. I mean, we are Kimberley is such a unique situation in the sense that we rely so heavily on residential taxes to fund what we do. And the mayor made a good point about where that money goes. And I understand when people see an increase of 5.3%, and it may seem like a significant amount. But given how our city functions and the fact that we haven't had to decrease services, we're chipping away at an infrastructure deficit, and the town is still thriving. Is just really a testament to how we manage our finances. So kudos to everybody involved in this. I mean, again, I understand that to everybody, all our taxpayers, it may seem like like, holy cow, 5%, still 5%. But if you compare to other municipalities, and how we have to pay for this through residential, it's pretty amazing. So hats off to you, Jim, and the rest of the city staff and everybody that works in the city, because it's a collective effort. But to me, this is a good news story.
Thank you, Councillor. Further? I want to just make a comment about the regional hospital increases. Back in 2019, when Kimberly was sitting at about, what was it, 100 and, trying to see where we were in 2018, about $184,000. There had been no increases in that regional tax for something like 10 years. It had been a very long time. And the regional hospital district, all of those taxes that are collected in the region, all the way from Golden through to Creston and the Elk Valley, all of the capital upgrades that Interior Health makes to facilities throughout the region, including the regional hospital, we pay for 40% of those capital improvements. And that's what this reserve is for, is to be able to pay the 40% when those capital projects are coming to the table. It was clear in 2019, after not having taken increases for such a long time, there were no reserves, and there were needs all over the East Kootenays, including here in Kimberley. And so a decision was taken to take appropriate increases to get those reserves up to par. So I guess that's the reason why the increases have been coming. In terms of the percentage increases, we are starting with a really small number, and so the percentage increases are going to look fairly large, but it's a requirement in order for us to get the healthcare facilities and the upgrades that we need, including from a Kimberley point of view for the primary care implementation, for a lot of the repairs to the building that we've gone to the hospital board looking for money for. We have to have a pot of money there in order to be able to kind of grow our healthcare in the region. Okay, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah,
We're almost there. When do you anticipate adoption?
We'll be back on March 13th to adopt the bylaws.
Okay, so
May 13th.
May
Yeah,
13th.
along with the financial statement
Okay,
presentation.
so a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks. Okay, excellent. Moving on then to the 2024 BC Winter Games Legacy Grant allocations. The motion on the floor is the council receive the grant allocation report for information, and further the council approve the grant allocation as presented in the report. Councillor McBain moves, Councillor Karen seconds. Fairly straightforward, council. Anybody got any comments? Call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Thanks, council, for everybody getting back to Pam in quick fashion so that she could get those processed. Similarly, we have the resident-directed grant program, the Ready Grants funding allocation. The motion on the floor is that council approve the CBT resident-directed grant program funding allocation as attached to the report, and the council authorize the release of the funding allocation spreadsheet to the program administrators at the regional districts so their board may consider approval of the allocations and distribute the funds accordingly. Councillor Roberts moves. Second, Councillor Cairns, thank you. Questions or comments, council? This was not an easy thing for any of us to go through this year. We had about an $80,000 increase in requests and a zero increase in money allocated. This was just a tough move this year. All right, hearing no comments, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the Small Housing BC General Density Project final update, and the motion on the floor is that council receive the report dated March 24th and the accompanying and the report from the manager of planning entitled Small Housing BC Gentle Density Project. Final update. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. Troy, do you want to give us the goals notes?
Can do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just pleased to wrap up this project here with presentation of the final project report. I was in front of council a few months ago, just giving an update on the status of the project at that time, just prior to the couple of workshop events that we held back in January, which we really felt went over very well and had some great discussion with a number of local housing industry stakeholders. This report, I think, will be a handy reference for any of those persons that attended those workshops and others that might be interested in developing small-scale multi-unit housing in the community. Count the zoning changes that council previously approved and the zoning changes that are presently in the works and coming before council at one of the next meetings here. Really helps to set the stage to expand the opportunities for more housing. And this report, this project, I think really helped us to kind of get a better understanding of what some of the challenges and barriers are to developing that, whether it's from, the financing side, the design side, all of the many sort of phases of project design and development that it's quite well understood when you're dealing with single unit housing, but not, most of the players involved that participated in our workshops and that we work with regularly, they're not as experienced in working with, multi-unit housing. So this will help to, I think, like I said, be a handy reference to kind of work through some of those stages of project development, and hopefully will help to reduce some of those barriers and help us to achieve more small scale multi-unit housing. Also attached to this report, just to point out, there's an additional document there that recently launched by Small Housing BC that also provides some additional reference there, but wasn't actually part of the original project. But both of those things combined, I think, will be helpful for stakeholders in our area there moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Troy. Councillor Cairns, go ahead.
Thank you. This is great to see. It's really nice to see Kimberley as a leader in homeowner-led small housing development, and it makes sense on so many different levels. With it improves affordability for both existing owners and for renters, and it fits our demographic changes with more young people and more older people. Efficient use of the city infrastructure and services, and on all levels, it's really great to see easier to walk and bike places, supports transit, and interesting to see the building permits coming through, and it seems to be getting implemented, and I just wanted to comment that it would be really nice to see it kind of highly visible going forward as well. So, maybe a dedicated spot on the website or and information links so that it makes it a little bit easier for people. I actually am not sure what the status of it is right now, but just that ease of access to information. And I understand that there's some grants coming up, maybe with BC Housing, to support this kind of thing, and it'd be really nice to see it facilitated on our website going forward.
Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, thank you. If I may there, yeah, thank you for excellent comments. And I should have pointed out earlier that our plan here is to make sure that that's available on our website for later reference. And we'll also be following up with the participants in the workshops, make sure they're aware of that resource is now available. And yeah, I think you're probably referring to, I think the province of BC has some incentive program for development of secondary suites that's currently open or about to open, I think. So yeah, we can make sure that that information is readily accessible for everybody.
Great, thank you. I did hear, and I heard again on this weekend at AKBLG about the BC Housing grant that's available, and that intake got just extended and delayed. So that's coming available. And then yeah, I heard also that in Edmonton, they're actually planning to allow units to be separately titled, which is kind of an interesting approach, consideration down the road, where some people are
building an additional unit and then can potentially eventually move into that and sell off their main house, and allows for aging in place and that continuity. It's kind of interesting things that are happening, and it's not everybody. It would be kind of a, it's a pretty difficult thing to take on. So it's great if there's ways of supporting people to kind of keep thinking about it, because it's one of those things that would easily get just kind of put off, like, no, this is too complicated. But as more people see more people doing it and the process becomes a little easier, it'll be really a great way of helping to address the housing.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Councillor. Further, Council? All right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Troy. Next up, we have the quarterly permit activity report, and the motion on the floor is the council receive the report. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Karen seconds. Discussion. Yeah,
That's my
there's a lot.
comment.
There's a lot to like.
No, it's a nice, I like it. It's a nice summary.
So, so before we go into, full comments then, Jim, can you maybe give us an overview, kind of where this is coming from and what it's intended to accomplish and what we can see from here forward?
Yeah, so I think Mr. Mayor Maurice was trying to get your attention there. I think you might have jumped to the quarterly permit activity report.
Oh, introduction to the admin update.
Yeah, so yeah,
sorry
so
about that.
I'll speak to that.
We have a motion. Did you move for the quarterly permit activity report or for the admin update?
For the admin update.
I moved for the, I was thinking.
And were you thinking we were on the admin update?
Yep, thank you very much.
Don't actually listen to it.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Jim.
That was off mic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so this is the first time council seeing this. It's as noted in the report, kind of the inaugural edition of the admin update. We're not quite sure. We were originally thinking this would be a quarterly report, but I think rather than it being kind of fixed increments fixed times throughout the year, we'll bring it forward when there's something to bring forward. So there may be meetings where there's nothing to report to council, but if something does come up, we'll produce the report. The idea behind it is it's really just to get information out to the council and the general public that wouldn't otherwise make its way onto a council meeting agenda. This one is, it's long, necessarily so, and capital heavy, just given the time of year. So there's a lot of information in here on the capital projects that are going on, kind of where they're at in the tendering process, when they'll be started. Thanks to Nick put a ton of work into this. It's great to have not only the narrative, but also some photos as well, just to provide some context. Troy did a great job of providing a summary on some of the planning initiatives going on as well. So the idea is that at our senior management team meetings that we have every couple of weeks, we'll discuss topics to put on this report. And as noted in the staff report, if council has any suggestions on how to make this a more meaningful document, more useful, we're open to making some changes as well.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I know it's, I do listen to you. I do appreciate that this one's long, and because it's it's got a summary of it, but I would actually argue it's actually very concise. It's really crisp. It's really well written. It gets to the point on all of the things that are discussed. So I like it. And not only is it's a good update, but it's also a good refresher too. Like it does help, because we deal with a lot of things, and it's nice to be able to, if something slips your mind, this is a really nice way to go back and revisit. So yeah, well done, Nick. This is really great. I like the way it's laid out.
Yeah, appreciate the comments on that. Yeah, again, that's kind of the intention. A lot of this stuff we talk about during budget, and then we don't talk about it again. We see the work happening on the street, but this just provides a bit of a heads up. And when there's there's going to be issues that come up in corporate services, finance, that we'll have on here as well. So it's really just all about communication. And on that front, we've got a few different initiatives going on the communications front. And I think probably sometime this week, there'll be a new tool on the website as well. It's a story map that's done with our GIS software. So it'll be an interactive map. I think it'll probably be located in the same place as where we access the GIS mapping, but you click into it, it'll be a map that incorporates narrative and photos. So you can click on all of the capital projects that are going on. You can click on them on the map. It'll bring up narrative, tell you what's going on, where it's happening, why it's happening. So shout out to Mackenzie, our GIS tech, for that. She did a ton of great work. Her and Shane both. So I think I'm looking forward to that coming up as well. It's a good piece of work.
Yeah, outstanding piece of work.
With regard to the actual update itself, do you think it's going to be, or are we hoping to be able to see response to the I guess what do I want? Are we going to get a count of how many people look at it? Be able to count that, whether or not people are looking at it or reading it, and it's not just a whole lot waste of everyone's time? Yes, for sure. Statistics, that'll work. Yeah, because there's a lot of work when it is, and will continue to if it's utilized. But if it doesn't get utilized,
Well, so you make a great point, Councillor Roberts. I think. Sorry about that. Thank you for those great comments, Councillor Roberts. If we go back over the last little while, we've talked about getting an admin report sent to council for quite some time. But this is not just for council. This is published information, public published information. And I think it does a great job of informing the public of what's going on. I mean, how many people say, what are those guys doing? I mean, yeah, we see some shovels or some backhoes on the road or whatever, but when you go through the list of projects that we are going to be doing this summer, the first thing that jumps into my head is the heads up on capacity. I mean, how much can we actually take on with the staff that we have in place to make these things happen? And I would challenge anybody to take one or two of these things off the list. I mean, these are all critically important things. So I think it's a report for council first and foremost to give us, a clue into what's going on. And, but I think it's also for public consumption. Our media folks will be able to, I think there's probably 15 stories in here, which they will be very thankful for. It's just overall, it's a great communication piece, both internally and externally. Great work on this, Nick and Troy. I can see the staff hours that went into it. And when we talk about a concise report, the words on that paper probably represent maybe 10% of the time it took to actually compile it. So thank you very much for doing that. Go ahead, Nick.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for those comments. It's much appreciated. If I may, so it's a very brief highlight of most of the things we have going on, but it's definitely not a comprehensive list. Excuse me. I just wanted to touch on that. And if I can take this opportunity, maybe there's a couple other items that didn't make the list that I'll just take a couple minutes of everyone's time and kind of highlight a few other items that are on the go and just information for yourselves as well as the public, as we mentioned there. So in terms of capital projects, there was the release out there about Marsden Street Bridge. This is some warranty work that's happening. I thought this one was important to highlight because it is going to result in a full closure of that bridge for a period of time. Right now, it is scheduled for May 2nd to the 5th. So that's coming up. On the road side of things, I did want to just highlight the capacity issues and the staffing concerns that we have out there. I want to note that we are hiring. So if anybody's out there and capable, definitely the postings are on our website. I encourage, if you know anybody, definitely we're looking for people, good quality operators. And then on the communication side of things as well, we're reintroducing the ambassador program, as it's mentioned in there, for both the water and solid waste. So we're hiring for that position right as well. It's labeled as a student training from university, high school students over the age of 16. Looking for some help to help spread the word on the changes with solid waste and then educate everyone on water conservation. Especially as we enter the spring summer season, I think that's on top of everyone's mind in terms of the water conservation. So that's one of the initiatives we're taking. With that, I also wanted to highlight in terms of water conservation, we are planning to start on stage 2 this year. This is a change from past, and it's a recommendation as part of the water conservation plan update that we had. So as of May 1st, we will be issuing some public notice on that, but just as a kind of first note that we will be starting on stage 2 water restrictions come May 1st. And then Jim mentioned the study that was in place for the water study and the water model update on that as well. So as we weren't successful with that grant, but have kind of redirected some funds that were in there working with the fire department to make sure that we can still move forward with this important initiative. Last thing I wanted to mention was May 22nd is going to be Public Works Day. So encourage everybody to come down and join us down at the Public Works Yard, grab a hot dog, and learn about what it is that the crews do out there on a daily basis. So thanks very much.
Tour of the dam.
And a dam.
Yeah, the dam tour. Councillor Cairns, go ahead.
I'm looking forward to the dam tour. I just thank you so much. I really appreciate the report, and I do find a lot of people ask me, what's going on, and I can actually send them the report and look for, it's just great to have this as a communication tool. And for my own benefit, I found it fantastic to actually put some of the pieces together and understand some more context. And it was interesting at AKBLG over the weekend. It was, we had a presentation from Catalyst Communications just about how important it is to be getting out there to the public and building that, building the trust, and that, effective communications are the main way to do that. So this is I think it's fantastic and super timely and really helpful. So thank you so much.
Woody, did you have any comments? I didn't see your hand, but I'll just ask.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative of this report. It's got a lot of interesting information and key information in one spot. It's nice to see.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Will there be a link to it, say, somewhere besides in the agenda package, or would it be on the website or anything like that? Is that it through?
Yeah, great question. It'll be on the agenda for now. If we feel that this is important information to highlight elsewhere, yeah, we can work with Pam and staff to.
One of the considerations for that will be maintenance. These are dynamic projects with things that are changing all the time, and keeping them up to date on something like a website might be a little challenging. Yeah.
Just, if I could, Mr. Mayor, just a final word. Yeah, so get this out in the community, please. Like, if you people in your groups, pass it around, let people know that it's available. They can always click into the link in the staff report here. And again, we'll be producing this report various times throughout the year as initiatives come up that we want to get information out on.
Thanks, Jim. All right, with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, next up, we do have the quarterly permit activity report. Motion on the floor is that the report be received. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor Cairns, or Councillor McGuire seconds. Thanks, Woody. I am paying attention. Troy, do you want to make some comments? Fairly self-explanatory. Go ahead.
Yeah, happy to do so, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Yeah, this is very much just a recap of what we've been working on the past quarter here, the first quarter of the year. So I don't think any surprises here. Most of the stuff's all been in front of council at one point or another. I think I'll just jump ahead a bit to the stuff in terms of new dwelling units, which is encouraging. I'm pretty sure when I presented the year-end report for last year, we were all quite proud and happy with the number of new units that were achieved. And I think I said something like that we probably weren't going to see that same level, and the years are already starting off at a torrid pace here. But which is great to see those permits getting issued to realize those units that are much needed. A couple interesting commercial rental projects as well approved, and so overall total of 29 new dwelling units approved, 18 of those which are multi-unit building or units within multi-unit buildings, and 6 duplex units, 1 single unit dwelling, and 4 accessory units or suites there. So really great to see. Again, this next quarter is already shaping up to so far seem on a similar pace. So we'll see how that looks here, I guess, in a few months. But happy to answer any questions if there's any.
Thanks, Troy. Council. Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The 2024 first quarter report from Animal Control and Bylaw Enforcement is up next, and the motion on the floor is that we receive the report. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor Karen seconds. Any questions or comments, Council, that our corporate officer will be able to answer? Right, Maurice? She says enthusiastically. I think, not anything specific in the report, but as a general, I would like to make a comment on the fact that I get lots of comments about the job that Sean is doing. Everybody really appreciates that he's got a really, really, really tough job. Nobody wants it, but everybody's appreciative of the fact that he's doing it, and is staying on top of many of the difficult things that we have, bylaw writing on here in town. So if you could pass that back to Sean, kudos for a great job.
It means a lot because there is definitely certain weeks that it's very difficult for him to do his job. So
No
I will
kidding.
pass that on. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Call the question on receipt. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have the appointment of the council, appointment to the Accessory Advisory Committee. With Councillor Royer's resignation, we need to appoint a councillor to that committee. And I think that communication has gone out to council on anybody who would be interested in this. So I'm going to make a call tonight on somebody who would like to step in and be the liaison for this particular committee. If I don't have a volunteer, I will need to appoint somebody. As with a lot of the other committees, this is not an onerous thing. How often are the meetings, Maurice? Quarterly?
At this point, it's monthly, and it's they've been meeting on first Wednesday of the month for about an hour and a half at lunchtime.
Right. Okay. So it's in organization stage right now. I suspect that once things get into a steady state, we're not going to be looking at monthly meetings. It'll probably be something, in the quarterly nature, like it is with a lot of the other organizations. So, okay, council, who's going to put their hand up?
I'm just going to say I don't have capacity, but if you tell me, then I will do it. But
I will take that under advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sue.
It's not my preference. It's not my preference, but if there's not another volunteer, I name forward.
Council? So, given it's not your preference, I will take this on. Stay tuned. Somebody's going to get Tourism Kimberley here in the next little while. But I have no problem taking this on until we get through the by-election. Go ahead.
As a suggestion, Don, do we have to make this term until 2026? Could we make the term shorter? To maybe, there could be an opportunity for a new council.
Whatever we wish.
I would suggest maybe making it a shorter term. Like if you, I appreciate you stepping in. I'll say thank you on that. Maybe the term could be shorter, and then we could revisit this when we go through the by-election.
Go ahead, Woody.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the date of the meeting. Is that set in stone to be Wednesday at 7?
It's at noon. Yeah, it's a daytime meeting at noon on Wednesdays. Which Wednesday of the month?
It's the first Wednesday of the month.
First Wednesday of each month.
Yeah, I'd be willing to step in until the by-election as well. So whatever you prefer there, Don.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that, Woody. Yeah, I guess, go ahead.
So I would propose the amendment that we council appoint Councillor McGuire at council's representative on the Accessibility Advisory Committee for a term ending October 31st, 2024. Would that get us? That would get us through
The by-election.
Yep.
Yep. Council, do we have a seconder? Councillor Karen seconds. You okay with that, Woody? Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for doing that. This is the formative stages, and some leadership at this stage of the game from council is important. So thank you for stepping up and doing that. Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. All right, last up. Almost last up, we have check runs, a couple of check runs. The first in the order of $354,885, and the second $936,961 to be approved as paid. Councillor Roberts moves. Councillor McBain seconds. Any discussion? Go ahead, Sandra.
The first one's generally business as usual. The second one includes the purchase of our recently approved new grader, updated grader that the staff found at training center in Edmonton.
Or like new?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Anyway, $330,000 there. For us, such a deal.
All right, awesome. Anything further? Call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Last item is receipt of correspondence. Correspondence related to concerns regarding Lois Creek development. Move receipt. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? The motion is carried. Okay, we do have an in-camera tonight with actually several items. So I guess what I would like to do is to do a really quick round of councillor matters, and I would ask everybody to keep this to 1 minute, specifically to kind of responsibilities and or events that you've attended on behalf of council. But please keep it short. Councillor McBain, go ahead.
Yeah, and I will keep it under a minute. I haven't been to any official duties recently, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank members of council and staff. I think a lot of the public knows that I've been absent for several meetings recently. Recently lost my children's mother to cancer, and so it's been a difficult time for me, and I just wanted to use this opportunity to thank everybody in this room, everybody throughout staff, the city, and the support that I've received. Very, very much appreciated. Been a difficult time, and yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I explained my absences. So thank you, everybody. Really, really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. We have an awesome team here. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McBain. It's good to have you back. Go ahead, Kevin.
Been to a couple of Trail Society meetings, and it's honestly, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's the 80 somethings to 18-year-old. Really inspiring to see how they collaborate and how like they're really, really passionate about it. And building trails from like roly-poly for your 2-year-old to like I hope I have my doctor on speed dial, um, which is awesome to see. And in the background, obviously, I plan in year 2 of the Kimberley Underground car show. So other than that,
All right, awesome. Glad you're enjoying that assignment. That's cool. Great. Councillor McGuire, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been continuing to represent us at the chamber meetings, and was able to attend the chamber Business Excellent Awards, which was well attended and well executed evening. Also been involved with some Moodside campaign planning meetings, Spark Youth meetings. Went out to the gathering of gratitude for the fire workers that helped protect Tecum during the wildfire season last year. During that big fire, it's really well attended and beautiful to see the support of the firefighters from the community, and just the gratitude that they showed to the firefighters was really impressive. And also a few meetings with Arts Council board members.
All right, thanks, Woody. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sue noted that a couple of us had been present at the AKPLG meetings. That means the Association for Kootenay Boundary Local Governments. So it covers quite a broad spectrum. It's basically the East and West Kootenays and the officers and councils and mayors from that area coming together with a theme this year on resiliency, which all of us seem to have are finding ways to adapt to. We had a look at a presentation from government regarding rural development that we always struggle with being called rural, but compared to the lower mainland, we really are rural. We had a big presentation on the resiliency around the climate change issues. We looked at how all of this is affecting the economic pieces of our community. We looked at the First Nations relationships as we are kind of moving into some kind of resilient and perspective of working together. We talked about how to navigate public discourse at a time when good decisions are not popular. We also had a second most important piece, or probably maybe the first most important piece, a day when we went through resolutions. And the resolutions are put forth by the various municipalities inside of this local government area, where they are trying to see, get our problems to the eyes of the province's governance. And so basically the AKBLG votes on them, and they either are brought forward or not. We take those then forward to the Union of BC Municipalities, who then votes on them as throughout the province, and eventually our concerns get brought to government. Generally, they were evolving largely around mental health issues, physical health issues, big, huge push for help for ambulance people and support and all of those things. A large percentage of discussion around justice issues and things not being taken care of. And really, there was a real stress again about the lack of participation with governments because we're rural. So it was really interesting for everybody to come together and make a decision on those resolutions. Generally speaking, I think there was about 25 of them, and I think about 23 of them were common, and only 2 of them that were denied. And it's good to know that we're all on the same bandwagon trying to get the government's attention. So that was our job.
Thank you, Sandra. That was a little more than 1 minute.
Sorry.
We'll steal the 30 seconds that Jason and Kevin didn't use
Sorry.
and add it on. Thank
It's
you.
a big deal.
Go ahead, Sue.
to Sandra for covering that. And I want to mention I attended Rediscover Kimberley on April 16th and the engagement on the facilities and master plan. And it was so well done, and a huge shout out to staff for making that happen and all of the community organizations that came together. It was an amazing turnout. With AKBLG, I'll just mention we also had presentations from the RDEK on emergency management and some recommendations around becoming really, stay in your lane, be cognizant of what's being asked and who's responsible for that information, circulating official communications, and being sure that we're really informed as council and knowledgeable beforehand. Highlighting that when the emergency happens, it's too late. So really encouraged us to participate in training. And then we also had a presentation on the health impacts of climate change and community actions to help address them. And that was largely with Interior Health and the Regional District of Central Kootenay and the City of Trail. Talked about their invoking their emergency shelter. And the big learning again was planning ahead. So they spoke about the community emergency response planning and vulnerability assessments. And then the last item I'll just note is the Kimberley Nature Park Society, and just want to note for public as well the incidents of wildlife harassment happening on Sunflower Hill in winter range and spring fawning habitat, and that dogs chasing wildlife is an infraction under the Wildlife Act and could be subject to fines of $500. And so the Nature Park Society is seeking people to report, observe, record, report, and we'll also be sending a letter to the city asking the city as a license holder to request wrap signage from MOTI. The Nature Park Society can't do that themselves. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Jim, did you want to add anything? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, Mr. Mayor. Just a shout out to all the community groups, members of the community that took part in the cleanup these last number of days. There's a ton of people out, and town's looking great. So really appreciate everybody for that.
Great comment. Thank you. Need a motion to move in camera. Councillor McBain moves, Councillor Dunneback seconds. All those in favor? Motion is carried. All right, we'll take a minute to terminate the meeting.